What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 25. And in this episode, we have the CEO of Dark Zero, Zach Matula, joining us. What's up, Zach? How you doing?
What's going on, Dylan? Thanks for having me, bud.
I'm really excited for this. Obviously, disclaimer to everybody, I'm part of Dark Zero, have been for over a year now, right? So Zach and I have worked pretty closely for a while now, but I think you guys are really going to enjoy hearing what this man has to say on the podcast. We're going to, talk about some things that, only a CEO of, an org within Rainbow Six, knows about and can talk about, and stuff that I think is going to be very enlightening for a lot of the viewers out there that have maybe, wondered what an esports org is like and what all goes into it. So I'm really excited for this episode. We just got Alex. He's been working really hard on the EU and APAC Pro Leagues, so I'm sure we'll talk about that as well some. But in general, boys, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty good. I mean, we're still licking our wounds from, I don't know when this is going to air, but we got our butts kicked by SSG last night, so I'm a little bit butthurt this morning, but we'll get past it. We're moving on.
Yeah,
I'm licking my wounds after APAC League. doing 6 games there and then EU the day before. I normally always watch I think it's a pretty good segue. I normally always watch the NA games, but having working EU and the APAC now, or APAC North even, just makes it impossible. The only reason I knew the results on the standings from yesterday is because they're on Twitter. Otherwise, I would have had no clue.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we went live today. There's so much Siege on. And I think about usually in previous seasons, I would watch NA and EU. And I really don't like streaming whenever either of those leagues are playing. But honestly, if you're a streamer and you are going to try to not stream whenever either NA or EU is on, you're not going to stream. That's basically what it comes down to now. And there's a lot of Siege on right now.
I mean, I used to have that exact thing. I didn't want to overlap any content. I didn't want to stream. I even felt bad streaming another game while Siege was on, because I always thought that I should try to push my community a little bit to watching the esport as well. Mm-hmm. But there's too much.
Yeah, I'm torn. I think that certainly the three of us represent a pretty interested group of people as it pertains to, Siege Esports. I'll provide a different view. I've always felt like Siege and esports at large asks a bit much of the casual viewer, right? That most people, and actually the people that we want to come in the door, right? We want to bring people in the door of esports and show them all the cool things going on. That we sort of demand a bit too much. The hardcore fan is definitely overrepresented in the esports scene. I'll echo what you said, Dylan, that, I used to try to watch EU as well, and now I've just sort of bailed on that, and I just sort of check the scores because there's a lot of Siege on. Having said that, I love the best of 3 format. I mean, competitively story-driven content that is really hard to replicate with a BO1. And, the things that each match becomes much more impactful. The wins, you feel the wins better. The losses hurt more. The storylines are better. So, I don't know. I think my hope is that, and I think that Ubisoft is thinking similarly, that this will drive more sort of regional interest, in the matches. So I hope you're right, but you're right. I mean, if you're a guy like us who is just trying to consume as much Siege as possible, it can be a bit overwhelming right now.
But the thing about you being average Joe with a normal job and then wanting to keep up with it as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's impossible, right? The whole, I saw a really good long story about the BO3 or best of 3 or best of 1 or best of 5, or no matter how you split it out. It was never really about which one is better. It's about what you're willing to give up. Because you can do I'm a big fan of best of 3s. They rarely change too much in terms of who ends up winning. If you were to do a massive scale of things, there might be a few teams that are going to do better on best of 1s and a few that will do better on best of 3s. but it's not enough to like justify changing the system for that. It's more to do with how many matches can you fit in to a day, how bad can it go, all right? Like how late can the whole project be messed up in timeline wise? Because if you let's say you have a venue and you have that like locked down until 8 o'clock that night, maybe you have like an hour leeway, but what if every single map goes to max overtime and every match does? Like, how many games can we fit in, and how much do we have to like say is the max amount of games that we are willing to gamble on going in that distance? When infinite overtime was a thing, I think there was a game that was like 40 rounds or something. Now imagine 40 rounds in a best of 3, right? I think the competitive integrity argument is the difficult one when you're talking best of 3 or best of 1s, because if you're taking a boxing match, you could lose within the first second, right? Like the first hit could be a loss. And even in a best of 1, you still have multiple rounds. And sure, maybe you don't get the map that you want. There's many things that go into it. It's just a little bit different strategical thing to look at. But as a viewer, I prefer having a victory or a victor at the end of the game day.
Yes, definitely.
And
yes,
especially if we have like 6 or 7 games, if I get like 2 or 3 draws that day, I'm dead.
Oh, it's horrible.
I just burn out watching it. You know, it's climbing, and especially the way Siege works with the side swap. You could easily be at a 4-2, and you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, they're winning," and then it's a 4-2, and now we're at a 6-6, and then we do that for 2 more games, and that.
What do you guys think about the timing in North America? I'm curious if we would benefit from making it earlier. You know, because it goes pretty late, and then like you said before we got started, Alex, you lose. Well, you lose a lot of people who have to go to work the next morning, and B, you lose a lot of people in the EU as well. I've always thought that the EU benefits from time slot because NA is awake to watch their matches.
Especially right now with a lot of people being home. It's summer in NA. You know what I mean? There's summer vacation. There is a lot of people working from home. Period. Still. You might be onto something there, especially when you consider, I think even considering best of 3s right now, I believe EU viewership is still higher than NA viewership right now on any given day. So is that because,
I believe that's true.
Is that because of the time slot? Is it because of more interest in the EU? I don't know.
Well, so without stepping on anyone's toes, I one of the reasons, and anyone can argue this, this can be backed up. EU has a bigger following in general, so that will have something to say with viewership. There are going to be more people in NA that know about some of the EU teams than there are going to be in EU that knows about some of the NA teams.
Really, that's interesting.
I think it just comes down to like how tournaments have gone in the past. Not the whole EU is better, but like we have had very, very strong profiles in EU. Both teams and player wise that bring a lot of attention. I think if we were to look at following, that might reflect as well. I'm not sure it still does to this day, because we have had some like big orcs come in and like SSG taking the crown last time probably skewed the numbers a little as well. But it has definitely affected the viewer numbers before. But I think if you started like an hour or maybe 2 hours earlier in NA, the numbers would be a little more steadier, like across all of it, right?
I'd like to see it. What you're saying too, Alex, is consistent with if you look at demographic analysis of the different regions, sort of for esports at large, not just Siege. Europe and Asia are sort of per capita more interested in esports than North America is. Now it's also, I think North America is, I might be misquoting this as old information, but when we checked, it was also the fastest growing region in the world in terms of esports interest at large. But the way I look at it is it's just sort of, we're just sort of a bit behind that way in terms of viewership and interest, but that it's growing pretty quickly.
We're what, 10 minutes in, and Zach has referenced some analytics, and that is if you know Zach at all, that is his wheelhouse. He is a very analytical person, very data driven, I think is fair to say. And I think that's a good opportunity to ask you, you at one point, you just made the decision, hey, we're going to get into esports. So what esport? And I think I've read before, you were initially leaning towards CS:GO. Why did you end up choosing Siege?
That's a good question. Yeah, we actually went. So if I think back through our pre-launch planning period was about 6 months or so, 8 months or so, and I bet we spent 3/4 of that as a planning to be a CS:GO org. And I think that we made a what I would consider to be a last minute pivot towards Siege because of the growth prospects. Not to say again that CS:GO is a bad investment. I think that CS:GO is a great scene. I love CS:GO, but in terms of being able to be effective and be a substantive part of the scene and be part of the growth prospects in Siege was something that we were willing to bet on. It's difficult to monetize. It's difficult to monetize esports in general, but it's even more difficult to monetize a tier 2 esport. So it's quite a bet. But it's a bet that we're comfortable with. We continue to be comfortable with. We believe that Ubisoft is a good steward of the scene. I think we've COVID sucks for this just like anything else. But we wanted to get in and sort of put our flag down into a scene that we could be a big part of as it grows into a tier 1. That was the general idea. Plus, we looked at different analytics. I know Dylan, you're aware that I think it's real important to have everybody together. We run a very closely knit, tight group, which Dylan is I want to circle back to your description of your participation. I think was a bit understated. We'll talk about that later. But we like to keep a pretty tight knit group. So I really wanted to be a North American org just because of regionality. And Siege has a bigger footprint in the North America as a ratio to the whole scene than CS:GO. So that was also important to us as well.
I think you hit probably, and that's not to be a sucker for Siege or bias on that, but you probably hit the single best time to join any game that anyone has done in a very long time. Like you got to be really lucky and I mean smart as well, but that is really lucky that Siege went the way that it did when you guys decided to go in, and that the investment is there from Ubisoft as well. And I mean, we've talked about this before on here as well, that it's no secret that 99% of orgs do not make a profit in at least the first long time. As soon as an organization starts breaking even, that's actually impressive within esport.
I think the concept of a profit-making org is a bit of a Bigfoot type scenario. You always hear, even in the business side of things, you hear, "Oh, I've heard these guys are turning a profit," or "I hear those guys are turning a profit." Nobody ever shows books. I mean, I will say that what was interesting is one of the orgs that had a really good shot at being profitable was Astralis Group, and they're actually, I believe, the first publicly traded esports org, which is interesting because that means you get to peek under the hood, right? You get to see.
That is 100% correct. They are the first.
And they were, I want to say, they're on the order of losing about $1 million bucks a year, which is fine. I mean, look, it's sort of it's the worst held secret in esports is that I think pretty much all the orgs are losing money, but that's very, I don't think that's something to be concerned about. I mean, that in any early growing business, that's the norm. If you look at social media, some of these behemoths of social media right now, some of these guys didn't turn. I think Twitter didn't turn a profit for like 10 years.
YouTube is the same thing. YouTube just very recently started being profitable.
Exactly. So it's a timing game. It's a very very delicate timing game. The general bet, I believe, from an org standpoint, is we all believe that this will be monetizable, that this will be profitable at some point in time, and it's how can we establish the biggest footprint in the scene now before it becomes profitable without running out of money? All right, so it's a constant optimization game, right? I want to deploy as much capital now while we deem it as cheap. It's sort of cheap real estate in a way in comparison to what we think it's going to be, say 5-10 years from now. But the trick is to deploy that capital in a way, in a smart way, that you don't run out, before this period hits where things become profitable.
But it's the 2% market share now compared to the 2% market share in 10 years when esport might blow up completely. It's that thing you want now, right? Because what you put in now, it might not be a profit at all, and it might take a long time. But you buying a seat at this table now is something that you might not be able to do in 10 years from now, or at least at that point, it will not make sense for most teams to do it. I don't think Astralis ever really tried to hide the fact that they were backed by some pretty impressive things. They're from Denmark, for anyone that missed that one. One of the guys who has a big hold in Audi, the car manufacturer, has something to do with it. They got a very famous Danish what's it called, clothing branding line to sponsor some stuff as well, where they had people line up outside to buy T-shirts when they or jerseys when they got released, which has never happened in Denmark before. Like lining people up in front of a real shop for esport merch, and CS has been big in Denmark, like the biggest esport in Denmark since forever, pretty much, in most of Scandinavia. But they never really hit the fact that they were there because they think at some point this is going to be profitable, and they just want to build a legacy that whenever you get there, now they're one of the giants, right? And it's going to be impossible to knock anyone off that seat if they've been there from the start.
Yeah, I think that's precisely right. That's the bet. That's the sort of, everybody's got a slightly different take on what elements it. Nobody's nailed the formula of what does a successful esport org look like. I mean, we see the continuum of, even if you were to sort of oversimplify it, between content and competition, you see that a lot. You see people across that entire continuum. You've got the FaZe clans of the world that are very, very heavily content focused, and then I would put Astralis at the other end of that spectrum that's very, very competition focused. Yeah. But then there's a lot of elements that don't get quite as much attention. Where I think apparel, you've seen some orgs come out and be pretty apparel heavy, like 100 Thieves merchandise, which can certainly be
they're half apparel and half org.
Right.
Right. I've said before, I think 100 Thieves is an apparel and content manufacturer masquerading as an esports org. I can't name a single player that plays for 100 Thieves, but I own 2 of their hoodies.
That's a good anecdote. Probably name a content creator, right?
I can name a couple content creators. Yep.
And I mean, that's not a bad thing.
No,
right? Like,
no,
it's
not
just
a bad thing.
Different way of doing it.
It's just a different way to do it. And then there's a lot of sort of, the point is, it goes back to what we were talking about before, that any revenue you can bring in now helps to extend that runway and extend the time that you can remain viable and up your investment in the immediate term. Agency's another one. Look, so content creators and influencers are immediately monetizable in a way to an org, right? If I have a giant network of partners and salespeople that I can plug you into and then sell sponsorships and things like that, then I can, generate some revenue for you and the org. So that's another big aspect that a lot of orgs are involved in. They're almost like behind the scenes agencies as well as orgs. So everybody's kind of scrambling to figure out, where can you bring in some cash to slow the bleeding, I think is the general idea right now.
But it's the same for the player. So that's a whole other thing. If you're starting an esport as a player, at some point you realize, because most people when they start think, I can win a lot of money, and then you realize that you're not going to be the best in the world all the time forever. That won't happen. So you need to make some sort of sustainable path where you can compete and still make a living. And you need to make enough that once you stop, it wasn't a wasted effort and wasted time. Because it's fine having the trophy on the wall, but you want to have something that stays, right? So like you can't aim for the winnings to be what pays your bills. You have to find ways to monetize yourself as a player. I remember we talked about this on the podcast as well, and there was a few of the comments where, like, I think people believe that if you were to win an invitational and get that amount of money, that is a life-changing amount of money that will last for a long time, but it isn't. Not for a player living in a nice city in the US, for example, or a European that has to pay 60% tax off what they win. Like, that amount of money quickly goes away, and it's not going to be something that you can just put it aside and then, like, what do you do once you're done, right? You got to build a following, you got to build some sort of impact on the scene where maybe you can sell appeal, mice, whatever, right? Like, put your name or something on a brand or work in the industry somehow. Maybe you can work in EUL and do analysis there, or you can be a caster or work for an org or become a content creator. But for players, they kind of have to do that same thing as orgs do, where they need to figure out how do we make this profitable if we're not the best. I think it's easy enough if you're an org and you're always number one, because there's going to be enough teams or enough people that will invest in you, right? Once you stop being number one and you lose a little bit of interest, it's about staying alive in that like 4th to 8th spot in your region, right? That's the scary spot to be in, because maybe the interest isn't that high and you still want to stay relevant, and then you can multiply that by 5 for every team in terms of player having to do the same, so they don't get forgotten.
Yeah, the players I very much think at this point in esports, the players are here because they're passionate about what they do. These guys aren't getting rich. I mean, certainly in Siege they're not. I think some of them, you know, are happy to be making a good living, and it goes up. I mean, the player compensation is going up and up all the time in Siege in particular.
I mean, it's not bad, right?
It's not bad, and you can survive, but like you said, it's not money that you can bank on for the rest of your life. And what I think what you say is very important, Alex, because we have I believe that esports has an issue commoditizing player contracts as if they were just sort of, you know, plug and play aspects of your company, and it doesn't really work like that in my mind. I mean, one of the issues that you address is the short lifespan of an esports pro, which is absolutely an issue in my mind. We actually consulted a psychiatrist coming into this, because one of the issues that we wanted to address directly is player burnout. And how do you know, we have a high expectation, high reward culture at Dark Zero. We both give more and ask more of our players than I believe any org in Pro League. And so, but what we don't want to do is we want to be careful with this aspect of burnout. So how do you maneuver around that? And we've put things into place. One thing that the expert stated to me that has stuck with me is that if you took, you know, 100 normal human beings with no issues and sort of put them into the esports pro lifestyle, and then kind of came back a year later, that a huge section of those people would be depressed, you know, because of, and this is now, of course, I think this is also maybe in fairness a bit of a take on the stereotypical gamer lifestyle, which I think doesn't cover everybody. I think people are, you know, are smart enough to take care of themselves, but at the same time, I think it's fair for us as an industry to address that a big part of your job is being stressed in a dark room, sitting down. You know what I mean? And that is something that we should all be taking steps to mitigate, and we do. I mean, that's a big part. I know you know, we've advertised quite a bit of the physical aspects of our program. I think it's very important, but there's a lot that goes into it. Diet, exercise, sunshine, being outside, you know, things like that I think that it's fair for us as an industry to go, okay, like, this is real. We've noticed quite a bit of the immune system kicks in when you start making challenges to the gamer lifestyle. That is, and you know, I'm a gamer. I grew up a gamer. But but I do think it's fair for us to challenge some of these things, and we have had some pushback that like. But it's something that I feel strongly about, that we have and will continue to address this issue of player burnout and mental health within the org. The other one too is financial literacy. What do you do after this, right? Yeah, you're right. It's not enough to live high on the hog the rest of your life, but at the same time, especially now that a lot of these orgs are moving people into houses and they're covering a lot of the bills and things like that, the discretionary income of some of these players is actually quite impressive when you compare that to somebody who has a mortgage and pays utilities and maybe kids and things like that. So, we make sure that I come from a financial background, so we do a lot to ensure and really help our guys plan out for that eventuality down the road, that they're not sort of rolling out of an esports career into into a low paying job somewhere without any skills.
The burnout thing you mentioned, kind of, I think that's probably the biggest issue in esport that we don't take serious enough and we don't think enough about. Because you mentioned like you're sitting there, you're stressed in a dark room, but not like you're pretty alone when you do that. Mm-hmm. There might be the few players on your team. You can't really share this. Right, you can't really go on social media and share about like how you're practicing, all of that. You're expected to kind of keep that's something that stays between you and the org and the team, and you're hush about it. But then on top of that, your performance gets judged by everyone. Whereas if we were to take an 18-year-old guy who joins the military and wants to train to join one of the SF groups or something, you're not being judged by anyone other than the people right around you. And if you fail, you just get kicked out. You're saved. Done. Right? But every time you beat the next hurdle, well, now you're reinforcing yourself. You're becoming stronger. You understand that you can go a little bit further. This doesn't happen in esports because you're not, I don't know, like you're not protected to start with when you're growing into it, right? So you're thrown in there. You come straight out of ranked or whatever it might be. Maybe you just beat your local friends in some video games, and you're sitting there thinking, I'm pretty good. Then you start competing on the big scene. Now you're literally like in front of a million people watching, and everyone's going to judge you. And I don't care how mentally tough you think you are. There is not a single person that is ready for that. And you can sit and say, I don't care what they think. You do. You do when it's plastered everywhere.
Absolutely.
When you can't open your phone without it being there. You can't be at an event without people either making a joke about the donut or the good performance or whatever it is. It's both good and bad because it'll get to your head if you're performing too good, right? Like I think star player syndrome is probably as bad as being like hit in a dark place about your performance as well, because both of them will eventually probably cause you to not be able to work as long as you otherwise would have. You're not going to be able to be the best forever. And if you keep the star player mentality forever, then you're going to cause issues on the team. If you're in too much of a dark spot, well, then it's going to be hard to perform, and you're at least going to be miserable, right? You might perform, you might play well, but hopefully the aim is to not have anyone ever be miserable while doing that.
I think you hit on something really important there, because it's if you think about what you just said, really what is the anecdote to what you just said, which I agree with 100%, is the ability to tune it all out, and that that is actually a lifelong skill that must be taught. I struggle with it myself. We do mindfulness training. I've done mindfulness training with the guys, which is just a kind of a new way of saying meditation. I think that's important. I'm a daily meditator, but I'll tell you, like I will. I've been impressed with the internet's ability to get under my fucking skin. I'll tell you that, like, some little shitter with like 3 followers will leave something on a post of mine, and I'll like wake up at 3:00 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and I'll just be like, that little fuck. Like it's shocking to me, this ability. And every time I mean my reaction to that is that I shouldn't have a reaction to that, but it is shocking.
But everyone listening to this right now knows that exact feeling of someone where after you replied, you're sitting there thinking, that is probably a 13-year-old guy laughing his ass off because he knows he just pissed me off. and over the most useless thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you put something out there in the world and someone goes up and the feedback you get is, I hate it, it's bad. Okay, fair enough. Now you give a good response, right? You put some effort in, you're like, why? Give me some feedback. And it just goes, it's trash. All right. Now you're a little bit pissed. And then you feel worse like a day or two after because you realize that you let that get to you. Like that's actually the thing that's going to bother you the most, right? Is that you replied.
As soon as you let it take up mental real estate, you've lost. And it's something that I would love to get better at personally. I would love for our team to get better at. I think there's not enough hours in the day. It's something though that is important to me, and the ability that people will tell you to just tune it out, and it's sort of a useless information, right? It's a bit of a useless piece of advice because it's like, of course, if I could turn it out, I would.
Right.
But it's like telling people to not be sad.
Yeah, it does. It's useless. So really it's a skill. It's a skill like anything else that needs to be practiced. And meditation has done that for me. It's helped. At least I'm not throwing things, I guess. It does help. But they get me. I'll tell you, they get me from time to time.
Yeah, people are just idiots on the internet. I mean, that's all you have to. I try to remind myself of that all the time, and then every once in a while something gets to you. But I think that over time, I know me personally, I'm getting better at it. I to go back on the burnout thing, I think that something that kind of plays into that a little bit is I did a one-on-one with Mint recently for the Dark Zero channel, and Mint's one of the older Pro League players. I don't think he's the oldest, but I want to say he's 27, which for esports athlete is up there. And I asked him about that, and he said that he doesn't feel like his age has been a hindrance at all. He still feels like he's one of the best players in the world. I think that he definitely is. I mean, if you look at the stats in NA, he's in the top 15 attackers in NA, as all Dark Zero players are for that matter. But what he said was that if he started when he was 18, he would be burnt out by now. That's the difference to him, because you don't see a lot of esport pros that are pros into their late 20s or 30s. And for him, it's not about the reaction time as much as it's about burnout, which I think plays into that point that we were just talking about. And here's another thing, because I mean, obviously, I'm a family man, and I'm thinking right now, like, okay, so let's say you're 27 years old and you're getting to the point where you're like, well, I love being an esport athlete, but I want to get married or I want to have kids. Like, is there a world where that can possibly exist? Like, what, Zach, as the CEO of an org, what would you do if one of your players was like, I'm getting married? And you know what I mean? Because that the house, that all, like, it's a 24/7 lifestyle that these guys are in. Like, how would that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would be, first of all, I think my gut reaction would be, I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled for, these guys to have that, because as well as I do, family can be a tremendous source of comfort. So I think that would be awesome. It would be a challenge, like you said. Obviously you can't move the wife and kids into the house, and nor would you want to.
Right.
So it'd be a challenge, but I think it's something that we would welcome. And in long run, it could be a good thing for a player to have that distraction. Again, this is something that we advocate for at the org. I try to skate this line because I don't want to be. We want to be as helpful as possible without being intrusive, and I'm sure we've crossed that line. We try to do the best we can, but I've always said, like, look, if you play video games for a living, maybe your recreation should be other than video games, something other than video games. You know what I mean? Maybe you should.
That's an important thing that people completely forget. And
yeah,
like I think that's the nail.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, right. Like, go outside, get a hobby. I very much believe, I think, medical science would agree with me that, we need to move our bodies and get sunshine and have change. I mean, even little things in terms of, changing your focal distance. I know a lot of gamers have issues because you have a singular focal distance, right? So something as little as turning away from your screen every once in a while and looking at something, that it's important, and our bodies and our brains are made over a billion years to work like this, and we got to be careful. And so, like, if you're not feeling good, if you're feeling burnout, does that mean? I actually and I was a financial trader before this, and there's a lot of similarities, to be honest with you, between trading and being an esports pro. And you gotta get away, or you're just gonna lose it. If I tried to sit on that floor for on my weekends and things like that, I would have lost my mind, but again, like Alex said, like a lot of these guys, how many esports pros do you think, maybe you play Siege for a living and then you play Modern Warfare all weekend to get away? Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know how much relaxing that is.
Like, why don't we learn a little bit from everything else? Because it seems like esport is this one super progressive thing where we're all like, we're so proud of us doing it the right way, but we are ignoring 90% of what the rest of the world already knows, right? Like, the chef probably doesn't like cooking at home. Let's be fair. Why should the pro player be playing Siege or CS or whatever in 90% of his spare time? Like, you go to work, you practice, you become better at this thing, and then you go do other stuff. At least if you want to be as good as you can. When you mentioned what if someone has to get married, or what if they get kids? Well, in sport, that doesn't seem to be that big of an issue.
No.
Right?
No.
If you're a professional football player, no one ever gets kicked out of Barcelona because they got married, or they got a new girlfriend or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the investment from the orgs as well should be to, like, the players are important. They're super important. Their health and the fact that when they leave the org, they will have had a better, they're better off by having been part of this than if they weren't. I think that's one of the most important things, is that they might not help you monetarily once they leave, but if they have any kind of if being part of your team had a negative impact on their life, that's not going to be something where you're ever going to have a sustainable org, right? So you want to build a culture where you can replace all your players over many years. I don't know how long esport is going to work the way it works now, because again, a football field hasn't really changed, but esport changes all the time. So it's really difficult to project and say what happens in 10 or 20 or 15 years. But you want to at least aim for the fact that you can change every player on your team, and you will still have the same culture, and you'll have something that will go past the people that played there, right?
100% agree. 100% agree.
And I think most teams forget that.
Yeah, I mean, so I've described roster building, the common way of roster building, a lot of ways for orgs is a bit of alchemy. Of course, there's exceptions, of course, but it's sort of like, let's throw all these people into a pot and see if it works, and then if we don't perform, then we maybe take one out and put another one in, or shuffle through all of them or something like that. So it's almost like a bit of chance. And I agree with what you said. Look, I'll tell you from personal experience, it costs money to build a program. You have to have a long-term view. We are betting that esports is going to be around in 10 years and 15 years. And those are the kinds of investments we're investing with, that mindset of how does this help us in 10 years from now or 15 years from now. I don't think that's super common though, in esports. And I agree with you.
A lot of people look at results over, like they don't look 10 years ahead. It's more important that they win tomorrow than that they do good for the next 10 years. And I agree. I think that that isn't really a secret. You can see that just based off some of the choices that have been done. And this isn't just Siege. This is just esport in general. I think that's the biggest hurdle we have to overcome right now is I'm not a big fan of franchising on paper, but I am a big fan of having teams where you build long-lasting communities around. And while there's something romantic about the idea of this little unknown team with 5 friends and a made-up name joining in and playing against the big boys every year, that's a cool thing. But I think building these long-lasting communities and and legacy teams that everyone will remember and be able to follow is way more sustainable.
I agree. I also think that potentially rightfully so, that franchising gets a bad rap. And the reason it gets a bad rap is that the model has been botched a number of times. We see these sort of micro bubbles within esports. I've seen headlines, people describing esports as a bubble, and I sort of patently disagree, but there are also, I would not disagree with the fact that there are bubbles within esports, which sort of speaks to, I think, the term esports in general, which is a bit overused or broadly overgeneralized, that people, you can't walk up to a baseball fan and just start talking about hockey and assume that he's going to care. Right. And it's the same in esports, right? These are individual ecosystems that need to be addressed as such. They have their own outlook, their own demographics, their own tempo, all these things, their own language. So the point being that, there have been bubbles within the esports scene. We've seen that. I think Overwatch is a pretty good example. The issue is that the world at large, the investment community at large, wants to be in esports, but it's pretty opaque, and we are a fairly shielded community, which is an opportunity and a challenge. But you see an investment like Blizzard opening up a big investment opportunity into a name brand scene, and all of a sudden people are falling all over themselves to invest in this thing, right? Well, then the price gets bid up, and now it's just reached a point where it's just not sustainable. It doesn't make any sense. It's in the ether. It's a bubble. Having said that, I think that reasonably fundamentally driven, cost structures around these systems and franchising could be really healthy for exactly the reasons you said, right? Sustainability. People are Green Bay Packer fans because their parents are Green Bay Packer fans, and they're, it's a community thing. It's been around forever. And I think that these things take time to build, and having the same teams for years and years is important.
I think one of the things that the viewers might take interest in realizing about Dark Zero, it's a little different than, I'd say pretty much any other org period, would be that Dark Zero is only in Rainbow Six Siege right now. That might not always be the case, but that's been a purposeful decision right now.
Astralis for CS, but yeah.
They're only CS? Okay. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here. That's been a purposeful decision up to this point. It doesn't mean that's always going to be the case, but can you go into why you haven't gotten into any other scenes yet?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So the business model is more, I think, succinctly put, that we will have a portfolio of games that is, we will scale our portfolio of games according to our capacity and our capacity to support those teams, right? In a way that we can fully support the teams. Like, we have I think done a pretty good job in Siege, but we are growing that capacity every day. So really it's a function of org capacity versus rosters under your umbrella, right? That's the sort of formula there. And I would say that Dark Zero, it's a pretty big part of our business model to have a high capacity to roster size ratio. So when Astralis is a great example. They're an inspiration of ours, from the comp side for sure. I think we like to do best of both worlds. Actually, I like to think that we sort of idolize Astralis when it comes to comp. I also sort of idolize G2 as it pertains to content. I think they do a fantastic job on content. We've always looked up to them that way. But let's take Astralis as an example. If Astralis bought a Siege team tomorrow, Alex, you would know exactly what that means for that team, right?
Yep.
They wouldn't have to produce content around it. They wouldn't have to try to sell you on it. You would know exactly what Astralis is bringing to the Siege.
They wouldn't even have to tell me that it's a good decision.
Yeah, it's because
I
you
would
know who
respect it
Astralis
so
is.
much. Yeah.
They have a culture. And that's important. That's a word we use a lot. We have a culture there, a competitive culture. Um, so I very much want that when Dark Zero rolls into another esport scene that they go that I want people to know what that means when Dark Zero's coming into a scene. And we've done the people on our staff, Dylan, you included, have done an incredible job so far, and I think we have some work to do before we get there. But yeah, that's the general business model if I was to sum it up.
I think it's
Just
interesting
to
because it's
sorry,
so
go ahead.
abnormal, and I think that as somebody who's worked with you closely on the content creation side, there are advantages to it in that there's no, I want to toot our own horn here a little bit. Dark Zero's socials are amazing. When you look at an org, when you look at the size of the org and compare it to other orgs, and you look at the interaction that we get, whether it be on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, the YouTube channel is growing as well. It's actually kind of unheard of in a lot of ways what we're doing on that front, and I attribute a large portion of that to being able to be like laser focused. You know what I mean? Like we can be like, if you see content from Dark Zero, it's going to revolve around Rainbow Six Siege. And there's other orgs out there where if you see a piece of content, it might be about their PUBG team. It might be about their Fortnite roster. It might be about their, and I think that really spreads their fan base thin. So I don't know. That's always,
I agree.
That's
I agree
one
100%.
thing.
I think most
And
orgs
I also
actually,
think that go ahead, Alex.
I was just most orgs actually don't do that well on social media in general. There's a few that do outstanding.
Yeah.
And then most others are just like, you scroll past it. You don't really see any of it, right? It's just there.
Let me tell you a dirty little secret, which I don't think this is a secret if you actually look at the numbers. There are a lot of orgs out there that have straight up bought their followers. I'm not going to name names here. I'm not going to name orgs, but I think, and Zach, I'm sure you can attest to this, probably one of the things that sponsors want to know. And this is the type of stuff that I say, and it makes me feel like we do have an esports bubble, because listen to how dumb this is, okay? So if a sponsor comes to you as an org, they're going to be like, okay, well, how many followers do you have across your social media platforms? And you're just like, well, we have this much. Who cares? What good is a follower if they don't interact with your content? So I think there's a lot of these orgs out there that have bought followers to try to leverage those followers against sponsorships. And in the end, they're actually killing their social platform. Because if you know anything about most of the social platform algorithms out there, like, they judge your content based upon interaction, not how many followers you have. And I don't know. It's just a little rant.
It's pretty plain to see. I mean, I agree with you. And well, you've got a couple dynamics there. You've got orgs who have, clearly, punched up their numbers on a follower account. And you also see, look, there's a big prize in esports. There's a big prize for the orgs that make it. And if you're in any scene like that, especially if it's sort of pre-profit like we are now, if you're not innovating, you're going to die, and that's just, this is a street fight, whether you choose to believe that or not. It's a pub brawl, and everybody's having to innovate. Everybody's having to push the envelope. And if you get comfortable, be it from a comp side or from a content side, then you could be in big trouble, and you see a lot of orgs. I think a lot of orgs, there's a bit of an old guard issue with some of these orgs too, that sort of go by a playbook that's been working for the last, 7 or 8 years or something like that. But is that, especially as it pertains to socials, and is that something that can persist and maintain as the industry grows? I honestly don't know. I kind of feel like if you're not pushing the envelope, then you could be in trouble.
I think that's pretty spot on. I've had some people send, like I get a DM from someone saying that they've got this offer now to join an org, and they have a contract, and they just want feedback on, like, if this sounds like a good idea. And I try to tell everyone, because I once signed a contract a long time ago with something where it definitely did not make sense. It was beneficial for the ones I signed with. It was not beneficial for me. And that took me a long time to learn that I should not be excited about signing anything. It's a business deal. It's not. I'm not lucky to have the chance to sign, right? But that's the first thing you think as a player when you get a contract is, oh my God, I'm part of an organization. Let's go, right? You're DMing all your friends. You're like, dude, I'm in a team. And everyone's super excited about it. And there's nothing really wrong with that. But spend the $1,500 that it costs to get a lawyer to look over your contract, because that might save you a lot of stuff later down the line. Like, I've seen people do a 5-year contract on like $500 a month for some tier 2 team where they have the potential to maybe go and become one like a top tier player, but they're locked in and can't do anything now, right? And they have these, like, it'll say that they get, you get a free mouse or you get peripherals and stuff. Like, that's part of the contract. I don't know if they realize, but that's beneficial to the ones giving it to you, not to you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, receiving the mouse is not some sort of, golden status of, damn, this is the best that can happen, is that I get free product that I can promote. Like, of course, be happy that's how money is being made. You're trading your numbers with the organization, so the organization can use those numbers to get those peripherals and get the sponsorships and then give you the peripherals. But you're saying yes to things and locking yourself in for a period of time in a lower tier where your outs really suck.
Yep. Dude, I could not agree more. And we've actually experienced that internally where, so let me say this patently, just as a first step, you should absolutely have somebody who knows what they're talking about review your contract before you sign anything, unquestionably. That's just step number one. No, actually, I'm going to take a step back. Step number one, Alex, is read your contract. And I'll be honest with you, you'd be shocked how many people don't even get through step one. That don't really fully understand what they're committed to. And I think it's a bit of, I think there's a bit of an uneven playing field that we need to be aware of. Because the truth is, a lot of these guys, I mean, you're talking about, some of these guys are, multimillionaires, businessmen, and then on one side of the table, and then you've got a kid who just turned 18 on the other side of the table, who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just wants to be part of the org. Now, I'd like to recognize that there's a bit of a culture clash there. That is, I don't know, we'll just say it's nobody's fault. Where, in business, there's an assumption. When I put a deal in front of you, the assumption is that you're going to read it and consume it and understand it and come and then if you sign it, you may, if you don't like it, you're going to counter me, things like that. That's how this works, right? So that's probably the world the businessman is coming from. But then you've got this,
terrified of that. Like, that's one thing, right?
I think you're right. I think players are terrified to come back and push back and because I think a lot of times, more times than I'm comfortable with, certainly, they don't really fully understand what they've committed to or what they're going to commit to. So in order, I'll play devil's advocate for both sides here. Is, as this industry grows, we need organizations to be able to invest in scenes. And in order to invest in scenes, like as an esports org, your portfolio of talent contracts can be your biggest asset as an org, right? So you need to be able to lean on those. You need to be able to understand that we've outlined the playing field. This is how we're going to interact with one another. Having said that, on the flip side is players need to advocate for themselves. They need to take the time to understand what you're worth. What's the market? What is fair value for my services? Is this a fair contract? Like you said, spend some money. I do think there's something that the esports industry could do. I'd like to see, for instance, in Siege, I'd love to see sort of like an org funded pool or something along those lines where I think it's good for us to be able to say, okay, we have this pool of money, like we're retaining an attorney, so all you guys can go like get your stuff looked at, get this contract looked at, and at least now I know you've had counsel, right? eVet Council, you're not being totally bamboozled here, and I think it works for the player too because like, they're not getting bamboozled, right? It's a sort of a perfect mix. So the responsibilities on both sides. Like I think there are absolutely abusive practices on the org side, without a doubt. But I also will say, as a bit of tough love to the content creators and players out there, if you're signing your name on a dot and you are an adult, then you need to understand what you're signing and what you're committing to.
Yeah, I think that part is more important than the other, because anywhere else in the real world, there are gonna be people that are gonna they're gonna make business if you're there or if you're not. You're gonna say yes to some things that are gonna be great. You're gonna say yes to some things that aren't that great. Like you're gonna make mistakes. But at least try to educate yourself on the decision you make. The difficult thing is that you're 18, you're performing well. You just got an offer from like this massive thing where you've consumed so much content that they've created, and in your eyes, being there is like a top tier, like one of the best things you could achieve ever, right? Just signing is a victory in itself. Then you go through the contract, you see it's like 15 pages long. It has 50 clauses, and the first one says, by agreeing to this, I agree that I've been told to get counsel and have an attorney look over it and blah blah blah. And you go scroll, go past like entire agreement in the bottom that make sure that everything you've agreed on emails and stuff prior just does not matter anymore. You just signed over your intellectual property, your branding, everything. And then you sign at the bottom because you saw that, you know what, I'm getting paid money. Let's go. And I get a free t-shirt. and now you're stuck for 2.5 years. Maybe the esport dies. Maybe that game you're playing loses complete viewership. And you want to go somewhere else, and you're such a talented player that you get an offer from somewhere else. But you forgot that there's some sort of clause in there that says that it's going to cost $200,000 to buy you out, even though you only got paid $1,000 a month, right? And then depending on where you are in the world, some of these things might actually be illegal to have like buyouts that are over a certain amount and stuff. But a lot of this is on the player for being too lazy to like it's one of the biggest things they will do at that moment. They see it as this massive thing, but they're too lazy to go through the trouble of fighting a little bit to figure out if it's right. And I will bet you that if the attorney came and said, you know what, clause A, B, and C, you shouldn't sign them, the player's going to go, but I really want to. And they're not willing to just say no thank you to something that might really screw them over in the future. And I firmly believe that, because I know that there are people that have been told that this is going to be a bad idea, you should not do this, and they have gone and done it anyway. Because, you know what, in the moment that seemed like it was the only way there. And I think all of them have regretted it after.
Yeah, it's certainly a problem.
Those tiny things could have been... It's not cheap getting a contract redlined. It isn't if you want to do it proper. And the forth and back can be really shitty, to be honest. Right? Having to go forth and back, and you're starting on a bad foot when you and the company are sending like 4 different contracts forth and back. But you got to realize that it's business. Like, the company is not going to be angry at you for trying to change the contract.
Well, and I'll actually say that
probably respect you more
if the company is upset with you for trying to sign the contract or trying to
unfuck yourself.
Yeah, I mean, if they're strong arming you into just sign, then I mean that's a red flag. You know, I like to avoid generalizations. You know, but certainly if you believe something to be fair in your own circumstance and you're advocating for that and you're getting a lot of pushback, consider that. You know, and be cognizant of your own value, because the truth is, this isn't always the case, but if one org wants you, then that means you have likely some pretty fundamental value and that another org would want you to, you know.
Yeah.
But that's a really hard thing to understand as a young player.
Yeah.
I think both Dylan and I can 100% say that and I've worked in normal industry with construction, and I know what it costs to build a hospital. I understand the value there of my hours and my time. But when someone comes to me and says, we're willing to pay you just for your name, and I have to like look at it and go, but why? Like, what's the value here? I have to try and understand all these numbers, and they ask, what are you worth?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, do I look at my followers' interactions? Like, what's the actual tradable value, right?
There's and that's where that sort of uneven playing field comes into consideration, because to be frank, we have consultants, so it's not that we know. I when I want to know what a player is worth or what a content creator is worth, a lot of times we consult with people. We have high-end consultants who we pay lots of money to evaluate these things for us. So there's certainly onus on the org side as well to operate in good faith.
Sure. That's the big thing right there is, and if you ever get a hint that somebody's not in good faith, you don't want to find yourself where the only thing holding your agreement together is a piece of paper. Like, that piece of paper is there for a reason, and obviously it needs to be there, but if that's the only thing holding your working relationship together, then something happened along the way that's not good.
I agree.
I want to talk like a little bit here, Zach, because I want to kind of put you on the spot, and I think that let's go back to your planning stages of Dark Zero, and you made the pivot to Rainbow Six Siege. If you go back to there and look at two things, where Dark Zero is right now as an org, and where Rainbow Six Siege is right now as a scene, how do you rate those two things? How happy are you right now? Are you where did you think it would be is where it is right now or further? Like, what's your thought process there?
Nothing. I mean, we'll never be happy. I think culturally that's sort of part of our mantra, is that we're never going to be comfortable with where we're at. Like, we always want more. We always want to be better. Having said that, I think that there's been people in the org that have done tremendous work to get us where we are. I'm very happy with the org and where it's been. I wish we were on LAN right now, COVID, but what are you going to do? I think I don't like to focus on things I don't have any control over. And COVID kind of delayed our LAN plans, but at the same time, the flip side of that is I was able to buy a facility in Las Vegas that now we've spent the last 4 months putting renovations into that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, right? So it's a bit of a delayed gratification there, but so on balance, I'm tremendously happy where we're at. I think that the Siege luck gods could have been kinder to us from time to time, but what are you going to do? Again, you can't control that. And we are, if you just look at the big picture of how do you build a team or a competitive program, I think step one is you have to be consistent. This is something that we're trying to fight, and I think that a lot of people lose sight of this. I've only been in the scene for a little over maybe a year and a half, a little under 2 years. And how many top unbeatable teams have we seen in Siege in the last 2 years? And it's constant. 3. It's a constant cycle of these
4
teams. Now G2, I think is the exception. They were a dynasty, right? They had a dynastic quality about them that it was different. But having said, other than them, we've seen teams come and go at the top end of Siege over and over again. So what I will say for our program, that it's not as flashy as bringing home the trophies, and we certainly want to, but that we've been the winningest program in North America since the inception of the program. Again, so we are building a consistency there, and so now we just have to sort of crack through that top echelon, and hardwood grows slow, and sometimes it's frustrating, man. Sometimes it's real frustrating, but we have the right people in the right seats to get the job done. We have gone from, I remember if you go back to one of the first pieces of content we put out was the wing challenge. I will say I'm also tremendously proud of how how different the team looks.
Yeah.
You know, like our focus on health is really become visually apparent when you look at the guy. when you look at the guys, nicest way to say that possible. But our stated goal was to become a LAN team, and you remember F3rd, right? They were always a breath away from being a LAN team, and so that was okay. Goal number one, let's be a LAN team. Well, I will say this: goal number one has always been to be a championship team, but you have to then break that up into bite-sized pieces, right?
But you don't want to win the trophy. You want to be the team that can consistently win the trophy.
Exactly.
It's more important being the team good enough to win and then maybe fall short 10 times in a row than it is to luckily get it once.
That's exactly right. And that's where Brandon and IBC, we really see eye to eye that way, is that we are willing and have done willing to sacrifice short-term winning prospects for the long term of the program. So, you know, is it all going to pay off? I sure hope so. You know, but I think we're doing all the right things. Again, the progression is there. If you watch that video, circling back, that was our goal: be a LAN team. We become a LAN team. Now it's odd if we don't go to LAN, right? You know, then we've gone from being a lower end, getting knocked in the quarters LAN team to becoming a top echelon LAN team, right? So that's we've made that progression. And I actually had this talk with Brandon last night that we need to be very comfortable. Be careful not to get comfortable, because that last step from becoming an upper echelon LAN team to a first place championship LAN team is going to be the hardest of all the steps, right? And we need to be as focused as possible as we can right now. So I'm very happy. Nothing ever comes as fast or as easy as you want it to, but in hindsight, I'm very proud of what we've built over the last year and a half.
Before you go into the second part of that question, I think I want to point out something and just kind of highlight it right now. So the first part of this conversation, of this podcast, really was probably the majority of it was spent talking about money aspects of, you know, orgs being profitable, players signing contracts and stuff. But what I think sums out to me was Zach and Dark Zero, period, is I asked him, rate yourself, how's Dark Zero right now compared to the planning stages? And he didn't even mention money. It's about how they're performing. So I think it's a peek inside of the mindset of what matters to you. I mean, obviously you want the org to be profitable at some point in the future. You know, that's the investment. But I think that you recognize that winning is probably the most important thing right now, and that, you know, the money will come down the line if you take care of those things. So just wanted to highlight
that's
that.
exactly well, thank you. That's very kind. Well, look, I mean, if you open, I don't know why I always come back to burger analogies, but I'll do it anyway. If you want to make money with a burger shop or restaurant, right, and all you're focusing on is the money, you're never going to make any money. You need to be focused on making the best damn burgers you can, right?
Yeah.
Best restaurant you can, and every little detail matters. And so I very much believe that if we put out a quality, you know, if we do our jobs well, the money will come. You know, it's a bit of a build it and they will come kind of mentality. But I very fundamentally believe that if we can build a strong team surrounded by a strong content team and a strong org, that the money will come. And that's actually the least of my concerns.
But isn't that just the competitive mindset either way? Because if you're truly doing it for money, then no offense, but you're a little bit of a dummy for doing esport then. Like, if the main goal is to just make money, why get into this kind of competition that's so volatile, where we don't know what it's going to be? Sure, maybe you could get lucky and hit the gold mine and be there right when everything blows up, but there are much simpler ways of getting a profit.
Yeah,
right?
You could say that really about any industry, I would say. You know, if
sure,
you're not passionate about what you do and you're there to make a paycheck, then.
But it's different in competition, because there's many construction companies, right? If we want to compare with that, there's always going to be houses that need to be made. If you want to get into esport, it's very unlikely that if you are the 20th team that you're going to make money. Why would you? You need to be one of the best to make a profit. You don't need to be one of the best in many other industries to make a profit, right? I think that's the big dangerous one that people forget. The same with sport. That's why, like, you don't last that long, and you need to, like, people are, getting upset about the money that some athletes make. If they're in the industry for 5 years, they're like destroying their body and their free time, their mind, whatever, to do this, they need to make something that will last them past this. And it's the same for the player going into it. Like, players don't go into it purely for the money.
Of course not.
Right? You go into it because you have this drive that is really rare, and you stuck it out a little longer than everyone else. It's not necessarily that you're, everyone says I'm a competitive person, and I hate that saying, because everyone is. Everyone wants to win. Just not everyone wants to give away a lot of stuff to win. And that's like the people that stick around is the ones that are willing to not get all the other stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, if you haven't watched Dylan's podcast with Hot and Cold, I think it's germane to this topic. You get the sense from him that he's just sort of surprised to make a living by this, right? It's he's here because he wants to do this. He's passionate about the competition and getting better. And I think you have to have that. And you're right. If you're here for the money,
then you're not worth them.
You're misguided. Yeah, it's a misguided. Direction for sure.
I think this was in MMA. Someone said, if you ever do it for the money, you're never worth them. And I think that goes for pretty much every competition. Like, if your main goal is pure money, then you don't have that drive that you should have.
Yeah.
We've always been really competitive. I think competition's important. We've always been really competitive at Dark Zero. Actually, I think Dylan can tell you too. We're pretty competitive on the social. In my mind, I very broadly split our company into two sections. You've got content and competition, and Dylan's been a big part of our content. I will circle back to. I told Dylan I would. I want to circle back to early on. I reached out to you. I was a Get Flanked fan before all this, and I wanted, when I first thought of who do I want to kind of cover our launch, I reached out to Dylan, and because I just like Dylan, and I said, hey, cover our launch, and he was like, yeah, that'd be great. And who did you talk to? I'm trying to remember how we did that. That's right,
BC. Yeah, right. I sat down with BC and did a pro and potato with him.
That's right, and that was super cool. And then Dylan. Sorry, I guess you can knock this out and edit it in post if you want to, Dylan. So I'm just gonna throw you in there. Dylan called me and goes, "I want to be," and I've always looked up to him and his position in the scene and everything. He goes, "I want to be a social media intern." I was like, okay, I didn't see that coming, but okay, like if you like to help us out, of course, and he actually. If I remember correctly, Dylan, you actually refused money at the beginning. You said, you were like, I was like, I want to pay you. I feel like this is weird if I'm not going to pay you. And he refused money. So I'll only argue back once or twice, and then I'm just going to, it's okay, fine. No money.
Sure.
And Dylan and I very much practically started Dark Zero socials together, just the two of us, and we would chat back and forth all day and just sort of put out tweets, and just try to figure out how do we do. So it's like two boomers, trying to figure out what the kids like.
I never heard the story.
So we would chat back and forth, and we'd put out. And I can remember very specifically, Dylan, there was a time when we started cracking like 250 likes on our posts, and I wish I had those threads. I'll pull. It'd be interesting to try to pull back for purposes, but it'd be like, fuck yeah, we're the best,
right?
And I mean, Dark Zero socials have just gone bananas recently. I mean, we routinely pull down 5,000 likes, 3,000 likes, stuff. I mean, it's just pretty crazy on Twitter and TikTok in particular. But yeah, I mean, Dylan was absolutely, him and I started our whole public image together, the two of us, so I thought that's a pretty cool piece of our history. I'll actually point out somebody else too in the Siege community that's a big part of our history and has their fingerprints all over the org is Kickstarter. Michael Stockley. He so just like anybody else coming into a scene, I thought, well, heck, I gotta learn something. I gotta figure out who's who and what's what and how this all works. And so I spent I think it was 5 days. I flew to was it Katowice? Is that where they're at?
Yeah.
In Poland? Yeah.
Yeah.
I flew there, and me and Michael just sort of walked around Poland for a week talking about Siege and how do you build an org around Siege and who are the rosters that are interesting and the culture and all that stuff. So there's been some people within the scene that have had just tremendous impacts, and a lot of it very much behind the scenes into what we've been able to do so far. So I really like those stories. I really like.
Well, I think for the viewers, it's important to know that not only, I mean, that the CEO of Dark Zero was sitting there making memes on a daily basis and still does. Still does. I mean, we still have a chat. We've got a bigger crew now, I think, but still, I mean, both of us are still involved daily in making content. And if you see a tweet come out from Dark Zero, there's no telling who it's from. It could very well have come from Zach. It could come from me. It could come from one of the many other super talented people that we have on the content team now. But yeah, I think that's really cool that you were willing to be that hands-on. You recognized how important it was. And for me, the big thing was I didn't know if I would be any good at it, so I didn't want money in that regard. One thing that I don't think people realize here, I was doing that for at least a couple months before we announced it. That's that, and you know, and I once we announced it and my name was associated with Dark Zero, that's when money started.
Now give me some money.
Yeah. But I didn't know if I would be any good at it, so that's really why that whole thing came about. But it's been a great relationship, and I was able to come down to the house very early on. That was a highlight of my Siege career period, just to go down and see how those guys work. And it'll be in a long story of Dark Zero, you'll have to look at that Houston house as like the foundation. And I think 10 years down the line, me being able to say I was there, I saw it, I think I'm going to be really proud of that. So that's it's been a really cool experience for sure, no doubt about it.
I've been actually pleasantly surprised how many people have been willing to trust us, to be real frank with you, right? I mean, how many orgs sort of come and go and out of nowhere, and and all of a sudden they just pop up, and you don't know who they are, what their motivations are, what their funding is. If I sign a contract with this guy, is he even gonna be able to pay me? Things like that. And
you can tell that.
That's been pretty cool for me, that we've been able to land such really talented people and work with such talented people at such an early stage in the org. I've been pleasantly surprised by that.
I think the community is pretty good when you say the sketchy weekend organizations that pop up. Most in the esport community is pretty good at calling them out quickly, right? They'll have a sketchy, they're based out of Cyprus or Malta or something, and then the people that line up with them are not the people that you're communicating with. You're getting emails from Gmail accounts instead of actual domains. they popped up overnight, right? They have way too many followers for engagements on Twitter, and they have everything. They have Instagram, Twitter, everything lined up from day one, and they just pop up. That's always a bit of a red flag. A humble start is a lot better when it comes to that, because at least they had to do something to get there. I think that'll be called out there.
We've always embraced too. I think we've always embraced being a small, or sort of embraced our weaknesses in a way, I would say, and embraced that we're a small org, and embraced that sometimes we're a couple of boomers trying to figure all this out, and I actually think that that's a cool thing to let people participate with us in. I think like Dylan said, some of our fans that have been around from the beginning are hopefully going to get to watch this really cool story unfold, and including all the ups and the downs, and that's where, that's one of our motivations behind Into the Dark, which is our behind the scenes weekly docuseries, is just to, I feel like what we do, right or wrong, I feel like what we do is fundamentally interesting. And I just want to give people a look, see, and figure out what it's like. I mean, just sort of drop the curtain a little bit. And
Good job on that one, by the way.
Yeah, you like that? I think it's pretty cool.
It's been amazing. We've come a long way since the Palm Pilot memes, haven't we?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I did buy a Palm Pilot. Shout out to Chowder. No, actually, Alicia bought me one. There we go. There we go.
For all the viewers that don't get this joke.
Why do you even have that ready?
It's ready. It's because it's always on my desk. It's right here. That's how I make my memes.
When Zach and I were making our little boomer memes, okay, there's people who recognized how boomers. I mean, here, let's be honest. Sometimes you swing and you hit a home run, and sometimes you swing and you miss, okay? And it happens, But when we would miss, people would call us out for being boomers, and that we must have. It looks like you made this meme on a Palm Pilot was one of the comments. So, like Zach said, he embraced the weakness there, and he's got a Palm Pilot,
and it's charged up.
It's ready to go, man.
The actual scary thing.
This is my weapon.
That's your daily driver, right?
That's right.
Let me put you on the spot again here, and maybe we can kind of wrap up on this one. But we've talked a lot about player balance. Let me ask, as far as your work-life balance as a CEO, you mentioned your history was in trading, and how have you found your balance? Have you struggled with balance being a CEO of an esports org and I don't know what it's like to be a trader, but for me as a content creator, one of the things I struggle with, I can work all the time. I can get on Twitter and I can scroll through, and I can do that at the dinner table. I can do that while I'm at the movies with my kids. I can do that anytime. That's something that I struggle with. Have you had similar struggles in being a CEO of an esports org compared to a trader?
Yeah, unquestionably. I think if anything, it's more work. But I will say that on the positive side, well, positive and negative, it's very, very flexible in terms of where you can be. Like you said, I can be on my phone pretty much anywhere, on my laptop, something like that. So that's a double-edged sword. But I quit trading so I could spend time with my kids, because that is, on the flip side, is actually very rigid time-wise. I mean, the market opens at a certain time and closes at a certain time, and that's a zero-fail situation, right? Like, you have to be there. So it's been good. I mean, it's, my family's very understanding. My wife's very driven. Our particular parenting style is I think it's important to be yourself around your kids and to pursue your dreams and let them see you do that. And we go, out of our way to spend time together and quality time together. But yeah, it's something that requires attention. It's not impossible, but unless you are making a willful effort to maintain I'm saying you broadly, but unless I'm making willful decisions to spend time with my family, it can certainly slip away from you. So it's something that you just have to manage. But I'm overall pretty happy with it. I got some pretty good kids. So.
Well, Alex, do you have anything else for Zach that you wanted to go into?
I have one like seeing as you are the ultimate boomer here. The important question for the non-boomers, because I just hit the 30 age as well, so I'm screwed. If you're a young guy now or a girl and you want to get into esport or competitive, you have this idea of joining an org, either as a content creator or player. What's the things that you definitely want to do, and what's the things that you definitely don't want to do? Like what are things that would instantly just for you if you check like I don't know, social medias or whatever like record people might have, what are things that would instantly just be like, nope, I just don't want to, and what are things where you look at them and go, you know what, this is an amazing attribute?
Man, that is a good question. Okay, so I will say this in terms of things to do your homework. I mean, if you gotta, let's just think about this in the big picture. If you're talking about gosh, even at the minimum, a year, the next year of your life, how much effort are you willing to put in to ensure that the next year of your life isn't sort of wasted, in being in bed with a organization that's just going to waste your time and your talents, right? That's really the context you need to be putting these things in. And, you know, everybody, I mean, in fairness, everybody doesn't have access to an attorney. Some people might not even have the capital up front to engage an attorney. But engage your parents, ask questions to the org, press, be professional, but stand up for yourself in a way, and know your value, and ask your mom, dad, uncle, maybe there's somebody in your life that you view as knowing business in general. Talk to them. Spend the time, read it and understand it to the best of your ability. So that's certainly a do if you're going to sign on with an org, without a doubt. And I mean, the flip side of that coin is don't there now this there's frankly a needle to thread here, because there you can be too combative in the sense that then the other side doesn't just is like, well, I just don't want to deal with you then, so you don't want to go walk in the room kicking over chairs and stuff like that, but in a professional way. Don't sell yourself short. Understand your value. Take the time to understand your value. Talk to other content creators. What is it that you do? Like, if you're a Siege player, what are the Siege players making, right? What do their contracts look like? And am I worth at least that much? Same with content creators, right? If I, what are my services worth? I mean, this is information that is out there. It just might take some work to find it. You guys mentioned, orgs that if an org were to come back to you and say, no, we're not even going to hear your concerns or answer any questions, that would be a big red flag to me right out of the gate. If they want to work with you, they're going to work with you. So, and then the rest of it's just, gosh, I hate to be as vague as this, just common sense, man. Do you like the guy? Do you like the people that you're talking to? Do you believe in, who are they? What do they stand for? Which is a bigger question in esports, right? With a lot of orgs, which I would argue is not a lot. Yeah. But it's tough though. It's tough. I will say that it's a tough question. And if I had, let's say, a niece or something navigating these waters, and I didn't know, I wasn't in the position I'm in now, I don't know how I would advise them, other than to just sort of be healthily pessimistic about everything, and look at everything under a lens, and just make sure you understand what you're getting into. So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, let me add something on to that from a content creator's perspective, because or not even a content, if you want to be a part of an org and not a player, okay? The number one thing that you need, but is also the hardest to get, is experience, which is why I came to Zach and said, I will work for free. How is he going to turn that down? You know what I mean? Like, so I can go in and I can see, first of all, am I good at this? Second of all, do I enjoy it? Third, am I adding value to his brand? If I am, then he's going to want to pay me to keep me there after he sees what I can produce. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and again, there's a needle to thread there, as you said, Zach, because you don't want to sell yourself short. You always want to get paid. You always want to get paid for putting in work. But if you're coming to somebody, an org CEO, and you don't have the luxury that I did, which was a name, I had a YouTube following and a name, then how can you possibly ask for something with them not knowing what you can possibly do? Don't be afraid to go in and put in some work for free, show what you can do, and then come back and get paid once you produce something of value.
I think that's fair. I actually think that, broadly speaking, internships are pretty valuable. We have an intern program at Dark Zero, and I don't know. I think interns never make a ton of money. That's just sort of the deal, right? The org risks their time and resources on you, and you build a reputation and a skill set. And I think that it's a situation that can be abused. I mean, we certainly don't, but it can be abused from the org side. But I also think it's important, like you said. That sort of goes back to your question, Alex, about what not to do. I will say this. I mean, I don't one one of the things when I'm talking to other org owners, you know, and that we all have the same story over and over again. If you pull up any org's DMs on Twitter, the people, I don't know if they're joking or it's kind of a meme or what, but the people that will ask to work at the org without putting anything up front at all, nothing, like literally, yo, hire me, is astounding. It's an everyday thing, and it does make me question. I go, I wonder if this guy really thinks this might work. You know?
I think that's half of the internet, though. Like, just in general.
Yeah.
That's comments, that's DMs, that's everything. I will add to the working for free. The one caveat with that is if you're an introvert person, be extremely careful, because I know a lot of people, and that isn't even just an esport, but that will end up getting taken kind of advantage of because they will offer something, and it's very easy for someone to kind of just never really mention anything after that, right? You just let them work, and then one day they're gonna get enough, and they're gonna be like, you know what, I don't want to do this shit anymore, and then they leave, and that was still profitable for the other person, right?
I agree 100%. You should always be looking. It's like a constant equation, right? It's like,
exactly,
if I'm brand new to this and I'm onboarding experience, is this experience worth the time I'm putting into it? And I think as long as that equation sort of says yes, then great. But you're right. I mean, fundamentally, if you're working for free, or what, you know, if you're sort of an intern working for, or even just way less than you're worth.
Yeah, just working for cheap.
Just cheap in general, you need to balance the whole equation. And you're right. If everything's working like it should, there should reach a point where you're going, okay, like I got everything I'm going to get out of this, and now I either want to make money or move on.
I always looked at it, and I was told this story very, very early on about the blacksmith with the horseshoe, where the horseshoe cost $5, knowing where to hit cost 50.
Yeah.
Right. It's the as soon as it starts making sense for you to be there, or as soon as your time is worth it to anyone, you should be asking for money, because the exposure is great, but I don't know anyone that ever paid for exposure where it worked. Right?
I think that's very fair.
If what you have has any worth, you will be able to charge for it, and you should, because at some point it's not going to be worth it, especially not in this industry. Your reach is not going to last forever. Your 1 million following or your 500,000 following is at some point in time not gonna care what you think anymore, and there's no value there, right? Unless you build a bigger brand where, again, you can put your name on a piece of hardware or software or apparel, whatever. Like, you need to make sure that you do it in that time frame, because if you're 19, 20, you got a YouTube channel that's about to blow up, there's gonna be a lot of people that wanna, you know, you can have an affiliate link, for example, which I've always just called a shitty salesman, because you get 10% for selling someone for anyone else. You could buy it from them for 20% cheaper and then sell it and make the 20% profit, right? Like, you can get 20% off almost everything in the entire world. That's like a good start if you want to hackle, at least if you're a farmer boy like me. You can always get 20%. So if you're promised 10% off on a random affiliate link, first off, they don't work. Like, they don't generally give you anything. And a streamer or content creator that has like 6 affiliate links everywhere on a stream where you can use code this to get 10% off, that's beneficial to the brand. It's not that beneficial to you. So
I think you got to look at any relationship. This is sort of, where did I get this? I think I got this from like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think this is where this comes from. But I look at relationships like a bank account. And, you know, you're either adding to that bank account. Whenever you add to the bank account, like you do something nice for somebody, you're adding, or even just spending time and talking to somebody, you're adding to that bank account over time. And anytime that you know, like, hey man, help me come move, or hey, I need you to do something for me, something like that, that's a deduction, right? Or even every time you're a jerk or something like that.
Damn, I think I took a loan with the wifey's account.
Yeah, that's a bit of a deduction. you could look at your brand the same way, you know, and I do. Yeah. Certainly for Dark Zero, right? If right now, you know, because we don't really have any major monetization efforts at right now, we will, you know, we try to willfully make it a bit of a one-way street. Like, it's an investment. That's what we're doing. We're investing. We're creating things for free for nothing. But every time you add something to your jersey, or you put out an ad, you put out something, it's a tiny deduction. And not that that's fundamentally a bad thing. It is what it is. I mean, we have to support ourselves, we have to make money, things like that. But like you said, every little one of those is a tiny deduction from that bank account with your fans, with your followers, with the people that like you. You're asking something of them. You're asking them to watch this ad. You're asking them to buy this mouse, something like that. And even that momentary little blip, it counts for something. It's non-zero. So you should be, I agree with you. You should be cognizant of that.
That's a very good way of putting it down.
All right, fellas. Well, let's wrap up here. It's been an awesome discussion, Zach. Seriously, thank you for coming on, and looking forward to maybe having you on again in the future, and everything that Dark Zero achieves over time. I'll tell you what, we'll have your Twitter down there, and we'll have the Dark Zero Twitter and YouTube as well. Anything else that you want us to throw down there?
That sounds fantastic.
Okay,
Come
just
check us
remember to
out.
send him DMs and ask if you can just join.
Yeah, well, and if you ever want a job at Dark Zero, I hire literally anyone that says, "Yo, hire me on DM." That's
as long as you work for free.
That's right. As long as you work for free.
All right. Well,
thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. It was awesome. With that said, I guess we will sign off here, and we'll see you guys next week.